Minnesota Wild are clowns. I just tried to paint a picture here. And I thought it was fascinating talking to a couple of the Wild media guys here this morning. For Eric Stahl's dad, he's on this trip. Apparently, the Stahl parents figure they have been on 30 of these trips combined, fathers or mothers. When you have three guys that have been in the league for a while, I guess that comes with the territory.
Wow. Those are two factors. Now, people might be saying, oh, this is bound to be a Canuck win, boosted by Tyler Toffoli. They're going to be all excited. Hey, teams do get often a dad or mom bump. Plus, they've got the whole uncertainty in the head coaching change. There's usually a bump there. So there are a couple factors that could affect the Minnesota Wild here tonight, Jeff.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, Blake. I mean, the Canucks haven't played since Sunday afternoon. The Wild haven't played since Saturday when they lost 2-0 to the San Jose Sharks. So both of these teams have to be clamoring. And I do wonder a little bit for the Canucks. You know, when you're not playing well, I'm not sure that all this downtime, the rest is good. And, man, March is a beast if people haven't look ahead, but kind of cover your eyes because March is just a monster of a month. But I would think you'd want to get back into the groove and the rhythm and play your way out of a slump and play every other night. And, for the Canucks, if they don't get points here tonight, they don't play again until Saturday. And then they don't play till next Tuesday. So this has really been a soft spot of the schedule for the Canucks.
Yeah.
And Travis Green alluded to it. They haven't picked up points in a week. And other teams around them are. And we know that the walls are closing in a little bit on the Vancouver Canucks. They will have games in hand, obviously, on a lot of the teams that they're battling with. But it's more about points than the number of games left. I mean, games in hand are great. They give you an opportunity, but then you have to go out there and make the most of them. So we'll see what happens here tonight, but it's starting to get real for the Canucks. They've cruised along 14-3, put them atop the division for a while. It gave them a nice comfy cushion there. But again, with the teams playing more around them and the fact that they haven't been winning much of late, all of a sudden they find themselves in the thick of things. And look, Minnesota beat them a couple of weeks ago. Elias Pettersson didn't play that night. That was the late scratch at XL Energy Center. But even with Pettersson at the end of the road trip, I'm not sure that the Canucks would have had enough that night. The Wild played well, played hard, and scored a couple of power play goals. And the Canucks penalty kill all of a sudden has become a big issue. And getting Tyler Mott is going to help. I know that it's the other Tyler that people are excited to see, and so am I. And, he's getting a great opportunity to slide in with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. But, if they can't keep pucks out of their net, they're going to have trouble continuing to win hockey games. Now, they get Jacob Markstrom back in goal. He hasn't played in a week's time since the Sedin Jersey night and was lights out against Chicago, and even the game before that against Nashville. He stopped 85 of his last 87 shots. So we'll see if he can pick up where he left off. But it's go time for the Vancouver Canucks, and they've got to be ready to go from the drop of the puck here tonight.
Jeff, it seems to be this sense around the team that the Canucks are not done yet. And I know you talked about only having one game after this one on the Saturday before getting a bunch. Well, it's also only one more game before the trade deadline. Do you think the players have a similar sense or feel that deadline looming?
Oh, I think so, especially the guys that have been through it. If there's one guy that's comfortable tonight, it's probably Tyler Toffoli, because he knows he's not going anywhere after getting dealt on Monday night. But, there is all this talk. Like, if you're Troy Stetcher, you live in this market, your friends are all in this market, your parents, you can't avoid it. As much as you try to tune it out, his name keeps popping up as, possible trade bait. And if not here at the deadline, then, quite likely after this season. And so, you hope that doesn't affect his performance, but he's a human being, and you can understand if that kind of stuff does get in a guy's head. But, that's where you have to be a professional about it and kind of block out that outside noise once the game gets going here. And, it's obviously not just Troy Stetcher, but all six of the Canucks that line up and play defense tonight, they have to be better, quite frankly, than they have of late. And Anaheim was a perfect example of that. It was a tough first period for Stetcher. He knew it. He owned up to it after the game. I don't imagine that he's going to have many more periods like that. But just overall, they've got to tighten things up. They've got to be more cohesive. They've got to spend less time in their own zone. And it would be nice to see the Canucks spend more time at the other end of the ice. They outshot the Ducks, sure. But, you all also there's an element you got to score. And once the Ducks had that 3-0 lead, the Canucks knew that it was going to be a tough climb, even against a team that is well below them in the standings. The Wild below the Canucks in the standings, but I think I pointed out to you last night, Blake, on the show, you go back to the first week in November, Minnesota has more points than the Vancouver Canucks. So Wild got off to a brutal start. They were 1-6. I think they had 4 wins in their first 14 hockey games. And, there was no coaching change then. The coaching change has come here in the last week. But really, since the start of November, they have sorted things out. But they've been playing catch-up because, man, that's a tough start to overcome in terms of the standings and the playoff chase.
Jacob Markstrom gets the start. No surprise there. Again, you mentioned the schedule. He's going to get he should get the next 3, I suppose. There's really no reason not to give him the next 3.
I think he could get the next 5. I think the back-to-back at the tail end of the road trip is quite possibly the next start for Thatcher Demko.
And that would seem fine, providing those 6 guys that you just talked about in front of him give him a break a little bit. I know he likes to be busy, but it can't be every night out, can it?
No. You're right. There's got to be a happy medium. He's been that good, and the numbers support that. The busier he's been, it's almost like the busier he is, the more he takes on that challenge. But you're playing with fire if you think that that's a recipe for success over the long haul. And so, the Canucks, again, I think they're guilty of spending too little time in the offensive zone, and then that leads, obviously, to counterattacks and the other teams setting up in front of Jacob Markstrom and having their way. And, I go back to the game in Minnesota in mid-January. The Canucks won 4-1. They built themselves a decent lead, and on the scoreboard weren't necessarily challenged, but again, Minnesota turned up the heat, and Markstrom was terrific in the third period there, and that was the back half of back-to-backs after they had won in Buffalo the day before. They weren't so fortunate in Minnesota, and you may recall Jacob Markstrom sort of played into that. He hasn't had many gaffes or off nights, but that second Minnesota goal when he tried to play it behind the net and he kind of whiffed on it, and it took a bad angle on him, and they were able to set up basically a tap in. He couldn't get back in the net there. So, he's allowed the odd mistake. You'd like to see the guys in front of him bail him out from time to time. He doesn't want to be as busy as he was last Wednesday against Chicago. He was sensational. The first 13 shots of the hockey game were from the Blackhawks before the Canucks kind of found their legs after the Sedin ceremony. So, again, they haven't played since Sunday, and they should be ornery. They weren't very good here against Anaheim the other day. Certainly not good enough to get a result. And as we said, if you don't play again until Saturday, other teams around you are. Other teams are going to pick up points. I know they're getting a little bit of help on the scoreboard so far tonight, but it's early still. And ultimately, the help that they need is, they got to help themselves. And that means finding a way to grind out a victory against the Wild here tonight.
So many places to go with you, Jeff, but I'll ask you this one. With the names of Dumba and Brodin starting to percolate a little bit, is this an early look-see for the Canucks as well, do you think?
Oh, I suppose every game is that opportunity. Will they be focusing on them? I think Bill Guerin has made it known that, he's open for business. We saw that with the Jason Zucker deal to Pittsburgh. And, I think making the coaching change, too, is another sign of him putting his stamp on this hockey club. So, we'll see where things go from here to the deadline for the Minnesota Wild. And for the Canucks, it's certainly an opportunity to, see what's on the other side tonight. But, am I anticipating either of the names that you mentioned arriving here in Vancouver before the deadline? No, but hey, there's still time here, and certainly crazier things have happened, and I think we all agree that, Toffoli is a nice ad and a necessary ad after the news about Brock Besser, but if they could shore up the back end, I think, if in fact this is go time for the Vancouver Canucks, and they think that, that they've assembled a roster that can, take a legitimate swing in the Western Conference, you can't take your best shot in the playoffs unless you get there. And, they're still above the playoff bar, but if they could shore up the back end, then I think certainly it would behoove Jim Benning and his group to look at that before Monday. So, maybe they'll watch this game, but pay a little closer attention than normal to some of the guys on the other side here tonight.
Just enough time for a quick edition of...
Time now for Do Something!
Whoa! Whoa! No!
Found this interesting. Not surprising, but interesting.
With J-Pack.
Do something.
Incidentally, this is probably the last season of do something. If the team makes the playoffs, do we really need to be demanding that players do something on a night? Maybe we do. Maybe we should keep that bar high.
Well, I think you require somebody to be the catalyst each and every night out.
There you go.
Look, I'll take the easy way out tonight, and maybe it's not fair to put that much pressure on a guy making his Canuck debut, but there's just no time for Tyler Toffoli to get his feet wet necessarily. Certainly playing with Pettersson and Miller and getting first power play opportunity. He practiced yesterday. He took the option of not skating with the group this morning, so he's only been on the ice once in Canuck colors, and they're going to slot him into the bumper on the power play. I heard you guys talking about the power play when I joined you, so I look at Tyler Toffoli, and I think back, like Josh Levo scored in his Canuck debut last year after they traded for him. Remember, Elias Pettersson scored on his first shot in the NHL in his Canuck debut, so there's some recent precedent here. What a way to start if Tyler Toffoli could get on the scoreboard against the Minnesota Wild tonight. So I'll say Tyler Toffoli is my do-something candidate, but I'm going to break from tradition a little. There are a few other guys, too. Bo Horvat, Tanner Pearson, Louis Eriksson, Jake Virtanen, any one of those guys. They are all slumping right now and really have since the All-Star break. So
Middle six.
The Canucks will take contributions from anywhere, but I'm looking at Toffoli, and we'll see what he can do. Wearing number 73 in blue and green here tonight.
Toffoli with a long list of honorable mentions. Got it. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you on the postgame show.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Jeff Patterson getting us set for the Canucks and the Minnesota Wild. When we come back, we'll hear from the head coach this morning as he gets you set for all of the lineup changes, and there are a couple at least for the Vancouver Canucks, and we'll verify those lines for you. We don't suspect there will be any twists and turns when warm-up begins, but that will be verified when we come back on the other side. It's the Alpine Credits pregame show, TSN 1040.
TSN knows what hockey means to Canadians, and Trade Center brings you the content you need about your team. We deliver NHL news and information better than anyone. Trade Center, Monday, 8 a.m., 5 Pacific on TSN. Brought to you by Pepsi Zero Sugar.
Winter is here. And if the sight of slick roads and snow-blanketed highways sends shivers down your spine, well, you're driving what we like to call a less than capable vehicle. Because when you drive a Ram truck, winter is nothing but a minor inconvenience. Get 25% off MSRP for up to $17,700 in total discounts on select Ram 1500 Classic models.